Sometimes words pierce the heart, leaving invisible wounds. At first, it might be barely noticeable, a fleeting joke, an offensive remark, or an unwanted rumor, distorting the truth in someone else's conversation. At that moment, the desire arises to defend oneself, to respond to the offender, to explain one's position, and to prove one's innocence. However, as soon as a person succumbs to this impulse, they lose control of themselves. One who cannot restrain themselves and reacts to every provocation becomes a puppet in someone else's hands. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true strength lies in the power over one's mind, not over external circumstances. However, many people mistakenly believe that strength is a constant readiness to fight, a desire to always have the last word in an argument and to prove one's superiority. They forget that every reaction is a valuable resource, a piece of inner peace, which they give away for fleeting noise that brings no benefit. The Stoics understood this long before such ideas became widespread. They considered the mind an impregnable fortress that cannot be captured without the owner's consent. Epictetus said that anyone who can provoke anger becomes the master. If someone's gossip deprives you of sleep, if someone's gaze makes you abandon your beliefs, if someone's minor jabs draw you into pointless conflicts, it means that you have never fully possessed your mind. In society, there are often individuals who test the boundaries of what is permissible with others, as if testing their strength. They seek to find out the limit of a person's endurance, the moment when they cannot withstand the pressure and break. Such manipulators crave to know how many humiliations and insults it will take for the victim to lose their composure and give vent to emotions. And as soon as they witness this weakness, they remember the vulnerable spot to repeat their destructive act in the future. However, there is a different strategy. A person who remains calm and composed despite provocations, slander, and disrespect becomes untouchable. Their invulnerability lies not in the absence of feelings, but in a conscious refusal to fuel someone else's malice with their reaction. Unfortunately, many people spend precious years of their lives trying to justify themselves to a crowd that does not care about the truth. They fight ghosts to prove their strength and chase offenders in empty halls until their own voice becomes the only answer. But such a struggle is not a manifestation of strength, but rather a form of slavery. True self-control begins with the ability to recognize one's own impulses, flashes of anger, urges to utter offensive words. It is important to be able to suppress these destructive impulses before they can cause harm. Seneca, an ancient Roman philosopher, once remarked that there is no one more unhappy than the one who has never faced difficulties, for they have not been given the opportunity to prove themselves. However, most people misunderstand this phrase, believing that proving oneself means using force or raising one's voice. In reality, adversity is a test, not a reason for aggression. It is in such moments that a person can demonstrate to themselves and to others that their peace and composure are stronger than any chaos, that their silence will outlive any noise. In society, one can often hear judgments about people who maintain composure. They may be called called cold, arrogant, and even heartless. However, should one attach importance to such assessments? Often, criticism comes from those who want to see emotional involvement in others, as their own weakness painfully echoes in the silence created by the restraint of others. In the wisdom of nature, namely, in the behavior of fire, lies an important lesson. A small flame needs airflow to grow and spread. However, if deprived of oxygen, the fire will go out. Similarly, every emotional reaction to external stimuli is like breathing life into a flame lit by others. Conversely, restraint and self-control deprive this fire of nourishment, dooming it to extinction in the dark. Let us recall situations when provocations forced us to act impulsively. A message sent in a fit of anger that you later regretted. Gossip that forced you to justify yourself to people who had already made up their minds. A minor quarrel that escalated into a sleepless night full of fruitless arguments and regrets about wasted time. What did these reactions bring? What changes did they cause? A person with self-discipline realizes that most conflicts are not worth entering into, as they are nothing more than carefully laid traps. Traps aimed at capturing attention, energy, and freedom. Many talk about self-control as a virtue that can be carried around like an amulet. However, self-control is more like a sharp blade. It is heavy, requires daily sharpening and care. And only in moments when the world tries to dull it does the true value and sharpness of this weapon become clear. The great thinker Aristotle once noted that anger is a feeling accessible to everyone, but to restrain it, directing it towards a worthy goal at the right moment and with due measure, is no easy task. The next time rage begins to rise from within, pushing you to rash words and actions, it is worth stopping, taking a deep breath, and asking yourself, is this moment worth my outburst of anger, or will my silence be a more weighty answer to someone else's noise? It is important to remember that Stoicism is not a manifestation of weakness or submission. There is no virtue in allowing others to abuse you. Stoicism is, first and foremost, a discipline of the mind, allowing you to discern when steadfastness becomes a powerful hammer crushing obstacles, and when it is a reliable shield protecting against the attacks of others. At times, the best revenge is not to sink to the level of chaos sown by ill-wishers, but to rise above it so high that they remain in the dust raised by your rapid ascent. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is nothing at all. The greatest victory is the battle you refuse to be drawn into. Observe people's reactions when they do not receive the desired response. Seeing insults break against the stern wall of your calm. How gossip withers without finding sustenance in your turbulent reaction. This is a sight worth paying attention to. Understand how powerless a person becomes when you refuse to satisfy their thirst for your reaction. True power does not need loud statements because it realizes that only empty vessels make a lot of noise. Genuine strength manifests itself in composure, for storms subside faster when you do not try to chase after gusts of wind. Unfeigned calm terrifies those who thrive on intrigue and scandal, reminding them of their imaginary significance. It is no coincidence that the king of beasts, the lion, remains calm, hearing the barking of small dogs. Maintain silence when you are provoked to shout. Protect your composure when they seek to unbalance you. Defend your mind from those who try to settle in it without your consent. Perhaps you will be called insensitive, but cool-headed minds are not prone to panic. Perhaps you will be accused of heartlessness, but your heart beats evenly and confidently, while the hearts of others feverishly pound from pointless bustle. Your peace is a powerful weapon. Wield it like the last and most reliable blade you will ever need. And when those same people try to hurt you again, they will remember what they cannot bear most of all, your steadfastness, and then they will understand the true power of your silence. There are men whose greatness lies in the realization of the impossibility of fully subjugating the surrounding world. They have mastered the art of not imposing control, but of holding it in a silent yet unwavering grip. This is the key lesson. It is necessary to master self-control, to cherish it as the apple of one's eye, and ultimately to become its embodiment. When fate tests them, they remain motionless, like mountains whose peaks do not remember the existence of wind. Let each person take root where they stand now, and allow the world to shower them with its blows. Let chaos and confusion rage around, but words and events should only swirl in a whirlwind without affecting the solid ground under their feet. It is necessary to maintain composure like armor that no weapon can pierce. A wise man leaves the battlefield when the stakes become negligible. He opens his mouth only when silence becomes more valuable than the truth itself. For he remembers that he who owns himself does not shift responsibility for his inner world onto the shoulders of others. Some life trials break people, but this lesson makes them unbreakable.